Tell the mother of the child who was shot that we're sorry, but it's decided who will and will not be allowed to. Tom Selleck is leaving everything behind after 36 years of dating. The Blue Blood star recently broke down and told his buddies that, given what's going on at home, he can no longer do it. According to people close to the actor, his wife Jill's devastating prognosis has prompted him to make the hardest decision of his life. The 79-year-old, who is divided between his beloved career and the Tom Selleck, the woman who saved him, was born in Detroit, Michigan, on January 29, 1945. His father, Robert, served in the U.S. Army as a mechanic on B-29 bombers while his mother, Martha, stayed at home. Tom lived with his grandparents during World War II while his father was away. When Tom was 4 years old in 1949, his family departed for the first 2 years of his existence. They had little money, so they packed what they could and drove from Detroit to California. Fit in the car, and they purchased a modest home in Sherman Oaks using the GI Bill. It wasn't easy for Tom's dad to work in a peaceful area of Los Angeles, California. Working as a real estate agent on a straight commission, therefore the family's monthly income fluctuated, yet even his parents instilled in him the value of honesty and hard work during difficult times. By maintaining his groundedness, Tom didn't grow up with aspirations of acting or fame. Was all about sports. He spent most of his time playing baseball and basketball. At 6'4", it was evident that he had genuine talent on the court or field by high school. Tom distinguished himself by declining a basketball scholarship offered by Montana State University. Intended to enroll at the University of Southern California, nevertheless, he unable to pay for it, so he enrolled and remained at Valley Junior College. Saved money by working part-time at a clothes store at home, exercising patience, and his efforts paid off, as he obtained a basketball scholarship and transferred to USC in his junior year. Scholarship while playing for the USC Trojans from 1965 to 1966. Didn't score many goals and played in just 7 games, but coaches saw his teamwork and toughness in 1967 with. Despite the ongoing Vietnam War, Tom made a significant choice and joined the California. He joined the 160th Infantry Regiment in the Army National Guard and served. He was a second-year student at Officer Candidate School till 1973. After serving as a lieutenant, he was elevated to sergeant and activated for significant occasions such as the Watts had a 6-month acting contract with 20th Century Fox at the time of the Los Angeles riots, but when he left to serve, the studio let him go, and when he returned, the deal was gone. So Tom attempted something different before his acting career truly took off, and he never regretted the decision. He made his television debut in 1965 while still a student at USC. After failing to win the dating game, Bachelor No. 2 returned in 1967. For a years later, he joked about his embarrassing responses after losing on his second attempt. Perhaps he lacked confidence, but the irony is that he didn't win. Producers observed his appearance and presence on camera during the dates, which attracted the attention of those he would not have otherwise possessed. Charisma back then, but he had a quality that caused others to pause and observe that. After receiving unexpected attention, 20th Century Fox asked him to enroll in their brand new talent program, which served as a structured acting training ground. Selleck remained in the program for 2 years in order to mold unidentified faces into potential stars. Despite 4 contract renewals, he has yet to land any significant jobs. After investing in him, Fox eventually dropped him, but they didn't follow through. The majority of people would have given up at that point, but he continued to attend acting classes. Continued working odd jobs to make ends meet, whether it was modeling, commercials, or whatever else he could discover. That he starred in advertisements for Revlon's Chaz cologne and Salem cigarettes. He used every role as practice to help him improve, even though he was aware that they weren't glamorous. There was a Selleck sought advice from his father during this difficult time when he was thinking of leaving, but he wasn't sure if his father offered him a straightforward response when he asked if pursuing acting was still worthwhile. If you might regret it when you're 35 if you don't pursue it. That statement resonated in my mind. About it long after the talk was over, and it gave him the motivation he needed. determined that acting wasn't a side experiment and to quit hesitating from then on. It became the objective, and he continued to develop his resume during the early 1970s. Showed up in episodes of Charlie's World, Lancer Bracken's World, and Marcus Welby MD. Although he got some screen time in Angels, these roles did not aid in his reputation building. Even though he continued to work, he encountered persistent obstacles because his role in Lancer was so modest that many people never saw him. Selleck's appearance should have helped him be rejected. He was 6 feet 4 inches and had a powerful presence, yet his height and clean cut sometimes caused casting directors to overlook him. He then claimed that someone like Dustin Hoffman had an easier time securing major parts because of his attractiveness. Since he appeared more like an ordinary person, Selleck appeared to be a celebrity before he was one, which made it more difficult to persuade others that he could act starting in 1974. He portrayed Jed Andrews on The Young and the Restless, a soap opera, until 1975. Wasn't a glamorous gig, but it provided him with important experience filming soap operas fast. On extended shoot days, it wasn't easy to remember lines quickly and maintain focus. He didn't become famous from his glamorous employment, but he did learn how to manage the demands of television, he later stated. Because he didn't want to remain comfortable, he declined a lengthier contract on the show. He was prepared to take a chance and bide his time until 1978, when he eventually received a break that felt unique after being chosen to play Lance White on the Rockford. The character in Files was the complete opposite of Jim Rockford, played by James Garner. Lance White was smooth and idealistic, gruff and cynical, always courteous, fortunate, and nearly too ideal, but Selleck made the role work by charmingly portraying Lance and providing James Garner observed that he was already an audience favorite. Well-known actor, yet he took the time to coach Selleck, telling him that the best parts have shortcomings. Thought honesty was more important than perfection because the latter may dull a character. When Selleck later featured in Magnum P.Y., he applied the counsel that stuck with him. He made sure the role had depth when Magnum P.I. first came out, as he had learnt from Garner. When it debuted on December 11, 1980, no one anticipated that it would revolutionize television. It was a detective show that took place in Hawaii, where there were pom-poms, sunsets, and a Ferrari, but it was much more than that. At its core was the tall, silent actor Tom Selleck. He wasn't just playing Thomas Magnum, he was Magnum, complete with charm and a thick mustache. And he gave the character something over the course of 8 seasons and 162 episodes. There weren't many shows with depth at the time, and Tom Selleck wasn't well known when he got there. He had performed in TV guest spots and modeling, but nothing that distinguished him as a household name. He saw an opportunity to take action when Magnum P.I. was picked up by CBS. In contrast, the character's initial iteration was ostentatious, extravagant, and possessed a James Bond mindset. Magnum even used a hang glider with machine guns in one draft, but Selleck didn't. When he argued with the creators, he stated that he preferred to play a genuine person rather than a superhero. Having a sense of humor and having imperfections, that choice transformed everything. Became a Vietnam veteran with emotional scars and contributed to rewriting the script. He drove a Ferrari that he didn't own, resided in a guest house on a wealthy author's estate, and took on menial tasks. Rich but not always self-assured, he had devoted friends and a history that still troubled him. Viewers identified with that since it seemed genuine rather than the part. Visited Harrison Ford just 3 weeks prior to the commencement of filming, and Ford became the cinema legend. Selleck has never shown a great deal of sorrow for staying with Magnum, although in a 2024 interview, Selleck stated that others still feel the pain of the lost opportunity. Magnum was the best thing that had happened to me, and it wasn't exactly a cross to bear. Karen Allen, who starred in Raiders, Selleck subsequently stated, "One of the great regrets of his career is not having the chance to play Indiana Jones." Influenced one of the most recognizable figures in television history. Magnum's Hawaiian shirts were authentic garments from a pop cultural phenomenon. Sales of such shirts soared by at Paradise Found, a tiny store in Honolulu. 300% during the show's run, the Ferrari 308 GTS came to represent 80s style, yet Selleck, who is 6 feet 4 inches, found it difficult to drive because he could hardly fit inside. The crew had to, in order for him to fit on, remove the cushions, adjust the seat, and bolt it in place. Even his baseball cap, the navy blue cap with the Detroit Tigers, had significance. Born in Michigan, the Tigers logo was more than simply a costume, it was a lifelong because it seemed appropriate for the character in a 1986 movie. He donned the cap. When asked if he still watched the Tigers in an interview, he responded with the single word, always. In 1983, at the height of due to Magnum's fame, Tigers' goods sales increased by 18%, and then it was impossible to ignore the thick, well-groomed mustache. Became a fashion trend in its own right, with Gillette reporting a 22% rise in mustaches. Sales of grooming products in the early years of the program, which they dubbed the Magnum effect, was a hallmark that went beyond simple fashion. Critics also pointed out that Selleck received an Emmy in 1984 for Best Main Actor in the drama series. He went on to win a Golden Globe in 1985, received 25 nominations. In 1984, the Emmys included Outstanding Drama Series. All of that achievement resulted from portraying someone rather than a flawless hero. The pinnacle of complex Tom Selleck's ascent to Hollywood fame was reached and everything changed for him in 1987 when Three Guys and a Baby came out. Leonard Nimoy, best known as Spock from Star Trek, directed the movie. Nobody anticipated it being a huge smash, but it did and made $240 million. Globally on a budget of only $11 million after accounting for inflation. Today, which is more than $500 million. The story was straightforward. 3 carefree bachelors are abruptly compelled to care for a baby that was starred with audiences adored Ted Danson and Steve Guttenberg, and the movie became the highest-grossing film of 1987 was also linked to an odd rumor. People paused the VHS when some spectators claimed to have seen a ghost in one clip. It quickly spread after pointing to what appeared to be a boy standing behind a curtain. However, the reality was less eerie. It was a cardboard cutout of Danson's character that had been left motionless. Prevent the film from becoming a classic, and it assisted Selleck in demonstrating that he was more than simply the character from Magnum P.Y., 1990. Selleck chose a different route and starred in the western Quigley Down Under, which was set and he portrayed Matthew Quigley, an American marksman who believes he's been employed for a typical position, but upon arriving, he discovers that he has been brought in to perform a horrible task. Selleck wanted it to feel authentic, so he chose his own serious, multi-layered part. He chose the Shiloh Sharp's 1874 long-range rifle for his own costume, and he chose his own horse by following the same guidance that was previously offered regarding John Wayne. Dances with Wolves, which came out just as well, did better than the film, so pick the horse that looks the best with you riding it. Weeks later and garnered the majority of the press, while Quigley Down Under eventually amassed a sizable fan base. Currently regarded as one of Selleck's greatest roles, he continued to act in 1989. James Rainwood was an innocent guy who was imprisoned for a crime he didn't do. The movie depicted jail life in a very honest and unvarnished manner. Compared to the cool and collected investigator he had portrayed for years, Selleck leaned into the shadows of the narrative and demonstrated his ability to play more serious parts. Next came Mr. Baseball, who played a declining Jack Elliott in 1992. In 1991, Selleck, a baseball player who ends himself in Japan in an attempt to salvage his career, did more than just act like a ball player. In order to prepare for his matchup with actual pitcher Tim Liana, he joined the Detroit Tigers during spring training and fouled off 3 pitches before striking out. Was a brief but significant moment that demonstrated his dedication. Later in his career, he collaborated with Disney and provided voice acting for Meat. He played Cornelius Robinson for the Robinsons in 2007, but it wasn't a major role. However, it revealed a different side of him. His voice was warm and heavy. Worked effectively in animation. His relationship with Disney also extended back to his previous live-action projects, such as 3 Men and a Tom Selleck produced the 1996 film Baby under Disney's Touchstone Pictures. made the unexpected decision to join the popular series Magnum P.I., where he played the tough and endearing Thomas Magnum. Dr. Richard Burke, a friend, made his debut in the episode The One Where. As you recall from Season 2, Ross and Rachel, the first time he entered wearing the audience in the studio roared, clearly recognizing the tuxedo. Selleck's mustache and movie star appeal were initially only intended to be in 3 episodes, but his persona gained popularity and he eventually made appearances in 10 off-camera episodes from Seasons 2, 3, and 6, but Selleck acknowledged he told the Kelly Clarkson show that he was anxious because he hadn't performed in a sitcom in years. He was terrified, but Courtney Cox helped him get used to it and made him feel comfortable. Aided their on-screen connection during Monica and Richard's romance. Their bond went beyond the age difference between Monica and Richard demonstrated emotional depth in this light-hearted narrative. Was 21 years old, which was a part of the story, but Richard's later problems were the true problem. Wanted to be a mother and didn't want any more children, therefore the dilemma gave the plot genuine weight. It was about life decisions, not just relationships. Despite heartache, Selleck assumed an entirely new role years later between he portrayed Jesse Stone in 9 CBS TV movies between 2005 and 2015. When Stone Cold debuted in February 2005, it brought in 18.2 million viewers. Jesse Stone was the police chief of a small Massachusetts town. The character of a former LAPD officer coping with alcoholism and divorce was quiet and honestly, it allowed Selleck to display a different aspect of his character playing. The designer said that Jesse had 2 fixed features and that he had never entirely healed from his background. He would constantly be in love with his ex-wife and struggle with alcohol, which caused emotional harm. Was novel for Sell, but he managed to make it work, and during the Jesse Stone filming, he additionally starred in the 14-season television series Blue Bloods, which debuted in 2010 and Frank Reagan, according to Selleck, was his blub because Blooded's persona had to abide by the restrictions. Jesse Stone frequently made his Selleck was able to examine both sides of the law by using his own rules to get findings that contrasted. In addition to playing law enforcement roles in the Jesse Stone films, he also worked in the background, serving as an executive producer from the start. By 2009, he formed a partnership with Jesse Stone Thin Ice. Despite this, he went on to co-write 2 of the movies, Death in Paradise, 2006, and these movies from 2010 have a slower tempo, lengthy silences, and Jesse's introspection. Selleck spent those minutes by herself, gazing out to sea, with no regrets. Commended for being more attentive, and audiences enjoyed the more nuanced character development. Even the Jesse Stone series author, Robert B. Parker, claimed that Selleck had perfected the character in Benefit of the Doubt. The 8th film, released in 2012, nevertheless brought in 13 following Blue Blood's conclusion. There were speculations of a potential return to Jesse Stone made his Broadway debut in 2001 at the age of 56 after taking a significant risk. Debut in A Thousand Clowns, which debuted at the Longacre Theatre on July 11, portrayed comedy writer Murray Burns, who is battling for custody of his nephew. Jason Robards was the show's inaugural star in 1962, and it ran on Broadway for 83 years. Shows and shut down on September 23, just a little time after the events of 9/11. Assaults that significantly affected theatergoer attendance had conflicting reviews from critics. Criticism. However, a lot of people commended Selleck for abandoning his comfort zone, and he made a comeback to network television in 2007 and appeared in the 5th season of Las Vegas. Season when former Marine and businessman A.J. Cooper purchases the Monte Ito after James Caan left the show to get Selleck ready to watch, he took over at the casino. The production began early that year, and the full prior season is available on DVD. The final season only featured 19 episodes in April because of a potential writer's strike. Cooper was a $2 billion cattle rancher, and his character had a complicated past. The season concluded with Cooper, who had served in Vietnam and received a Bronze Star, pretending to be dead and attending his own memorial, but the show was cancelled by NBC. Blue Bloods aired on February 20, 2008, only 5 days following that episode. Began airing in September 2010 and ran through December. Even though Fridays at 10:00 p.m. were a difficult time slot in 2024, it still produced impressive results. 6.68 million people watched the final program live, while 11.4 million were anticipated. Selleck was crucial in maintaining the show's stability, as his character led both of the show benefited from a police unit and a family that combined their personal and professional lives. Moreover, each episode included a family dinner scene that went viral. These sequences from the series featured the Reagan family discussing their Donnie Wahlberg and Selleck both claimed that the dinner strengthened the bonds between the actors. The scenes were straightforward, but filming them required each performer to demonstrate what over the years, followers observed as their character expressed their emotions without saying anything. The engagement of James and Eddie and Henry's 60th birthday are significant events that take place at that table. In spite of the huge viewership, CBS canceled the work anniversary and Selleck was irritated during the May 2024 concert and believed in an interview, he stated that the network didn't appreciate what they had. The show's more. The cast felt the same way, we're more popular than ever and we're definitely not out of ideas. According to Wahlberg and Bridget Mohan, the show seemed like more than just work. House before to the mustache's famous status and his inclusion on television's Tom Selleck.